Hello there, it's Mike with
Jesse.
That's right, we're back, episode 186, and we're still talking Marvel Phase 4 this week on Cup of Rad. All right, so last week we talked a lot about onion rings.
We did.
And we were able to just dip our toes into Phase 4.
Yes.
It was like we ran through a sprinkler once and never went back.
Basically, yes.
So we've decided to break these up into multiple episodes so that it's a little easier to digest.
Yes.
Last week we talked about Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and the Eternals for Phase 4. This week we're going to continue with the theatrical outings in the MCU. And then we will also be looking at, in probably part 3, the television.
Yes, which is very important too.
Yeah. I think that's what'll end up happening by looking at this. I think we can probably hit all the TV in one episode.
Yeah, I think so. I think we could definitely.
But no promises. No promises.
No promises. It honestly depends on how much we, end up discussing food and snack food and that stuff in general.
That is true. That is true. So, what snack food do you want to start with today?
How do you feel about popcorn?
Popcorn's delicious.
I mean, it is, right?
So I've taken to taking Nooch.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, it's nutritional yeast. It has a B vitamin in it that has a bit of a cheesy flavor. And I take garlic powder, onion powder, salt, Nooch, cumin, and chili powder.
Interesting.
And I'll throw that down on my popcorn, and it kind of has a bit of a Doritos flavor.
Oh, that's kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
See, my go-to is just a little bit of vegan butter, and then salt and the Clubhouse Sriracha lime powder.
Oh, okay.
And that is something that my mother actually turned me on to because she is a bit of a popcorn fiend, and that is her favorite way to do it outside of kettle corn, which is just a whole nother beast that is also delightful.
A tasty beast.
It is a tasty beast. It is. That is one thing whenever I go to the P&E. At the end of the night, I always grab a big bag of kettle corn, and that is my breakfast the following morning.
Nice.
Now, I have matured enough over the years that I don't need to eat the entire bag for breakfast now. I can just do half a bag.
Nice.
And not regret my life for the rest of the day.
With milk or
no, it's not like cereal.
Like cereal.
No.
Well, I wasn't sure you pour that in a bowl, throw some milk in it, you're like, It's kind of like cereal with that coating.
If I was going to use it as cereal, though, I would, instead of milk, I would probably do just coffee.
Just coffee?
Instead of milk.
That's that. You should try that.
Would that
just
work?
A little bit?
Would that work with cereal?
If it has enough of a coating on it.
What if you did just? But think about it. Like, what if you did like latte cereal where you do like half milk, half coffee? I feel like we're tapping into something here.
If you weren't doing pop kettle corn,
yes.
What would be the cereal to go in there though? Oh, probably a chocolatey cereal.
With a chocolately cereal would be like phenomenal. Because
then you'd be getting like a bit of like a mocha.
But the problem is like there's not a lot of chocolatey cereals out there that I like. Actually, there's one that I've had that I don't mind. That is actually pretty good, and that was the chocolate Timbit cereal, which
really
is going to be unfortunately probably just a Canadian thing.
Yeah.
Unless you have Tim Hortons.
I'm sure any of like those chocolate puffball ones.
Yeah. Did we just revolutionize cereal?
Maybe.
In a conversation about popcorn?
Someone needs to try.
Are we just that good?
Maybe we need to do a taste test one day.
Okay.
And buy some chocolatey cereal. Right. And get some coffee.
Yeah.
And
throw some onion rings on there.
The sad thing is I'm actually like, damn, I want some fried food now. The more these conversations go on, the more fried food I want. I don't think I want to cook tonight. I think I'm going to have to like message Katie and tell her that we need to actually like hit up like some takeout.
I mean, that's never a bad choice, especially in the heat. It is. Because Lordy, the heat this week has been less than fun. Yeah, not sure what the heat's been like for wherever you folks are listening from, but summer has kicked in with a vengeance here in Canada for this week, and we are we're handling it though like champs.
Yeah, it's nothing like last year though.
No, it is not as bad as last year.
We don't have a heat dome as of yet.
No, which is good. And there is an end in sight, which is always nice when you have these.
Yeah, it's going from like feels like 43 to like feels like 21 next week. Yeah. So,
yay for global warming,
I guess. Well, I guess, yeah. And when these episodes drop, it'll have been a completely different animal. We don't even have the 14-day forecast. So
that's true.
But yeah, that's super wild. Well, hopefully it'll, but yeah, now I want fried food. Damn it.
I mean, how do you handle that when it's hot? Like, because I know what I do. Like, I tend to do all of my cooking in the morning, and that way I don't have to do it in the peak when it's super hot outside. Yeah. That's when I'm being responsible. Non-responsible Jesse will just be like, "Hey, pizza's awesome," and someone else is making it. So
pizza is the perfect food.
In a lot of ways,
put pretty much anything on it.
Yes.
You don't necessarily need dishes, and you eat it with your hands, which are nature's forks. So,
and I am aware that of the existence of pizza with French fries on it, including poutine pizzas. Yeah. Why not a pizza with onion rings? That's what I'm saying.
That's
Can you imagine onion rings on it? Like the marriage of onion rings and pizza? I mean, that sounds like a transcendent experience.
If with enough mozzarella, it would also feel like a bit like a mozza stick on a pizza.
Like an oniony mozzarella stick. Yeah, like a stuffed onion ring.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I don't think either of us are actually going to cook tonight. I know you said you got dinner ready, but
see, that's the thing. I made dinner already this morning.
I was just going to do a salad tonight because it was so warm. So
I actually did a stir fry. I did a stir fry with soba noodles. What do you mean?
Like a cold stir fry?
No, I just do it. They just heat it up.
Oh,
afterwards, just stir fry.
So it's like leftovers then.
Well, it's like leftovers, yeah. But you know what?
That's like still way too much effort.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'm sorry.
That's too much right now. Too much.
I did a really nice pasta with pesto yesterday.
Oh, nice.
First thing in the morning. The day before that was, what did I do? Oh, I don't remember. The days, when you're not working, the days, they just blur together.
The days, the who knows? I keep thinking I was... Because I'm supposed to go to Langley on the weekend here because there's some things I got to get. And we were talking about it the other day.
Yes.
So I was all like ready to see what the Toy Traders flyer had, right? And then 5 o'clock hit and the Toy Traders flyer hits. But then I realized it was Wednesday. And I was like, I got to wait a whole nother day for this. Like, So, but that's life.
That is life.
That's life. I've been, off for 2 days now. I get one more day off before I go back to work.
Well, that is very nice. But I mean, at least, you're working with air conditioning, which is
that is true.
A big plus.
That is true.
And you've had some pretty stellar customers coming in the last few
right?
days. So
there's been a couple. There's this one guy. I couldn't remember. He stayed way too long.
Right. Overstayed his welcome.
No, Jesse came and visited me when I was slinging beers, and it was really nice. It was really nice to have someone familiar. Katie's also visited me too, and that was really awesome too. So, but it's definitely weird to be behind a counter and not beside the people that I'm used to being beside and drinking, not being able to partake.
This guy, though, I mean, he literally talked me into like a 3-course meal with beer pairings the other day. I was perfectly happy going in for just a night, one beer, maybe some chips and dip, maybe a one and done. But no, I ended up, it was like a 3-course meal with pairings. Granted, it was delicious and a magical experience, and I wouldn't change a thing. But still,
It was so good. You came back the next day.
it was so good. I came back within 15 hours of leaving.
the same amount of time that I was gone.
The same amount of time, basically, that you were gone. Yes. I mean, it is conveniently a 4-minute walk from where I live. So really, it would be disrespectful not to do it.
It would be like, I do hope that, I see you at least once a week.
Oh, definitely.
So.
At least once a week, maybe even more than once in the same day. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I feel like downtown, close to downtown where I live, there is a couple of nice breweries. There's a really nice coffee shop, a couple of restaurants, and I have spent a surprising number of days on my holiday just kind of like bouncing between them all. And it's never my intention, but it just kind of works out where it's like, oh, a friend wants to meet here, and then, oh, another friend wants to meet here, and then before you know it, I'm just, a regular everywhere.
That's fair enough. They've done such a great job revitalizing downtown, and
They really have.
continuing to.
It's really a pleasure.
It's a place that me and Katie, when we lived here originally, we never went downtown.
No.
And now we're at least once a week down there for some grocery or coffee or beer. Now more for me because I'm working. But,
Yes.
I think that's, well, one of these times you're just going to have to like stop by near the end of my shift, and then I can like have a beer with you after.
Right. One of those days when you open and then actually come towards the end. Right.
Yeah, that would be good.
That would, yes, definitely. Well, we do that. Well, I think we have some time before the end of summer.
4 weeks.
Oh, don't say that. That makes it sound so short.
We're at the mid. Well, when the episode drops, it'll be like 2.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Right?
Oh,
it's all coming back. It's all coming back to you now. But we've been rambling for a while now, right? So we probably should, because otherwise, we'll ramble.
I mean,
we always rambled, but
we always ramble. It's kind of our thing.
But there's a big one. There's a big movie. This was a huge MCU Sony movie, Morbius.
The best movie I have ever seen. Why did you even bring that up?
I've never seen it, so I cannot comment on it.
I have seen it.
Oh, here we go. We can have a special moment where Jesse talks about a non-MCU movie. You get 5 seconds. What is your thoughts on Morbius?
I don't need 5 seconds
Morbius,
to tell you
it's
that.
Morbin time.
Oh no. I think you just made it worse. Or better? I don't honestly. I mean, the problem is there really is nowhere to go but up from that movie. That shall not be spoken of further.
Fair enough.
Anymore. However, I think there was another Marvel Sony crossover that perhaps we could talk about.
Yeah.
And just to recap, we are talking about Phase 4 of the MCU, which is essentially all the movies that came out last year and this year. And one of the probably most anticipated movies to come out of the MCU since the Avengers Endgame was Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah.
And that was not a trashy movie.
Not at all.
No.
Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Home trilogy, directed by John Watts. He actually got to finish it. The first director to direct 3 MCU movies.
Yes.
So Peyton Reed will be the second with Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Right.
And then James Gunn with
Guardians. Right.
He should have been the first, but controversy set aside. But yeah, Watts got to actually finish his Home trilogy, which is pretty wild.
And what a wonderful trilogy it turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right off the bat with this trilogy, you had the immediate advantage of not trying to tell an origin story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was one of the biggest pluses for me because everybody knows this story.
Yeah.
even if you're not a huge Spider-Man fan, you pretty much know this story. So, he's done a fantastic job. And this movie, though, I think I would argue was the most anticipated over the other two, just because of the extremely high expectations by a lot of fans of who would be appearing in this movie. So we've got the basic concept of, one of the first movies where we really dive into the concept of the multiverse. And of course, it would not be a multiverse movie without a little Doctor Strange.
That's
cameo.
true. Benedict Cumberbatch came back for. Is it a cameo? I guess
I wouldn't call it a cameo. He's got a pretty
co-starring role.
Crucial role throughout the film.
12 minutes is a cameo.
12 minutes? Okay. Well,
under 12
maybe.
minutes. Under 12 minutes.
I feel like it was more than 12 minutes.
That's what she said. That's what everyone hopes she says.
Oh, yes.
I haven't been able to drop one of those on you in a while.
You haven't. And
I've had restraint.
You've had restraint,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. But I can see how that was warranted.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But yeah, so multiverse.
Yeah, so we knew from the trailers right away that we were getting a lot of villains back, and I was very excited. I think I've probably mentioned I recall mentioning in a previous podcast how excited I was to see Alfred Molina back as Dr. Octopus, seeing Willem Dafoe come back was also really, really exciting for me because he just did such an amazing job in that role in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man world. And so with the return of all these iconic villains, including the Lizard and Sandman and Electro, there was a lot of anticipation and a lot of predictions that we were going to see the Tobster, Tobey Maguire,
Friendly Neighborhood,
and Andrew Garfield return as their incarnations of Spider-Man, as the villains stretched out over and encompassed all of their worlds as well. And, at the risk of a massive spoiler alert, we as fans were not disappointed.
That is true. They did come back.
And it was definitely, probably for me, it was, I think that first reveal of Andrew Garfield was one of the most epic moments since we saw Mjolnir fly into Cap's hand in Endgame. One of those total theater cheering moments that
I think I was actually most excited to see Garfield come back.
Were you?
Versus Maguire. Yeah. I think just because I don't think he got his due as Spider-Man as much as Maguire did, just because Maguire had 2 solid movies and a third okay movie.
He at least got the trilogy, right?
Garfield got 1 good movie and then a second so-so movie with some amazing moments, and then never got to finish. So,
and what I really love about all the Spider-Man movies is that I don't feel like there's been a bad Spider-Man, as in a bad actor. Like I love Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I loved Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I feel like they all have they bring different strengths to the role. Like I feel like, Tobey Maguire really, I think, hit that, emotional note where you just really sympathized with him. Like he really hit that high note of the sympathetic Spider-Man. He did a really good job of, you felt things very deeply with him.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield had brought that great sass and wit to the role that, was not, Maguire had his, sassy zinger lines, but Andrew Garfield really brought that to another level. And I think he he at least portrayed a more youthful take on the role. Tobey Maguire, especially in hindsight, seeing it compared to the other Spider-Man, seems a more mature, very much actually like kind of what you would expect the original kind of milquetoast Peter Parker from the original comic series to be like, or when you go back to the original like 60s animated version of him. And then of course Holland, he just had that. He had that. He was kind of the whole package, you know. I really liked, again, seeing an even more youthful Spider-Man, and then having that wit, but also having, you know, really portraying very well that inexperience, that almost naive approach towards superheroes in general, that he was able to really,
I think, wide-eyed,
really the wide-eyed.
He's in a world that's different than the other Spider-Man.
Exactly.
He's in a world that's existed with heroes before he became a hero.
Exactly.
Right? So he's in that like striving to be like almost like his heroes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. He of course had the very close mentor relationship with Tony Stark, which, you know, was really great to see that develop through this trilogy as well. And then of course ultimately you know, him dealing with the aftermath of losing that mentor and feeling almost like he needs to, almost a little bit like he needed to step into that role and step into those shoes, and not really knowing his identity. And I thought that was a really interesting take for that character, because that's not something that's not a storyline that I had myself read in the comic book. So it was interesting. It was interesting to see him not necessarily following just the familiar.
Yeah. So they took like that idea, because in, say, Civil War and stuff in the time of comics, he did have a close relationship with Tony Stark. He did get the iron. So basically, in that retrospect, they took later stories and just aged them down.
Yes.
Right? So that they fit where they needed to. So I thought that was kind of cool, right? So he's having those experiences when he's a teenager versus when he's in his 30s. Right. That's the big difference, because most of those beats pretty much feel the same.
Yes.
Right. For emotional weight and everything.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of an interesting take on it for sure. Our Garfield reminds me of 90s Spider-Man.
Yes.
Right. He's got edge to him. He's a little darker. He's leaner.
Yes.
He's lankier.
Yes.
Right. And not like animated Spider-Man, but like the comics, like the McFarlane kind of like design.
Right.
Right. Where he's just a
super lanky. Yeah.
And it was cool to see that still there in this, where, you know, he had that that look to him. No, I really like Garfield as Spider-Man, and I know there's all the rumors swirling about possibility of giving him a third movie, or he might be the Spider-Man in the Venomverse, right?
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens there, but I would love to see him come back and be Spider-Man again. I think that would be kind of a cool, you know, take on it.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, I think like I said, all of the Spider-Man brought something to the role that the previous ones didn't necessarily have, or that were different from this. So I don't feel like we've had the same Spider-Man every single time, which I think is what made that coming together of all three Spider-Man that much more special. It's not like it was three versions of the same character. It was three very different Spider-Mans who, you know, really went through very different experiences in their own universes to get to where they are today. And, you know, this really is the opposite of Shang-Chi in a lot of ways, in that it is, you know, it relies heavily on previous films. It's not like a standalone movie where, if you were to, I would never say, you know what, don't watch any other Spider-Mans, just watch this one.
Well, yeah, you literally need 5 Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
Well, sorry, you need more than 5.
7
Spider-Man movies. Plus, you need Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. So you're at,
to really appreciate this,
10 movies basically.
Yes,
to understand where you're going with this. Like, that's a big commitment.
That's a day. You're spending a day.
That's more than a day.
Right? That's more. Oh, that's probably
Infinity War and Endgame are a day.
It's a day if you don't eat or pee or sleep, which,
like,
you know,
that's a lot.
It is a lot.
And that's where it relies heavily on that nostalgia as well.
Yes.
Right?
So very different in that sense from Shang-Chi, in that it's not, you would not call this a standalone movie. No. Because you could not appreciate it fully if you've never watched anything to do with Spider-Man ever again. You could not appreciate it fully if you'd only watched one or two of you literally have to watch all of them to fully appreciate this movie.
Because you get a Marvel, you get a Spider-Man villain from every single movie.
Well, exactly, right. And
except for Holland's.
Yes, that's true.
Right. And that pissed me off, though. That made me sad. They could have I wish they at least brought the Vulture back in some form. I guess
the idea was that they're coming from different universes, right? Know, but I mean, why couldn't you have a different universe version of the Vulture?
Yeah, right? I want to see Keaton as
he's a great Vulture,
right? And I don't want to go watch Morbius to see it.
No, he's a great Vulture, because I mean the Vulture. The character of the Vulture, Adrian Toomes. I mean, he's always been like an old man. Like in the comic books, he was like a bald-haired,
because he's like
bald-haired, bald-headed old man, right? So I like that. So Michael Keaton does a really good job of being not just like a younger, fitter, more, version. Like he's kind of that cranky old man a little bit, right? Yeah. And he does that really well. And I thought he was legitimately menacing.
Oh yeah, I think he's still one of the stronger villains in the MCU because
absolutely
he had different motives.
Yes,
and he was intimidating when he wasn't in costume.
Yes.
And
absolutely
still intimidating when he was in costume, right? Like it was kind of that, like he really played off the strengths, and I think it really showed how much fun he had with that role. So from what I know about Morbius, I'm sad that he is no longer in the MCU.
Yeah, that was a weird choice in my opinion. I feel like I don't understand, honestly. Like it feels like the MCU taking a step backwards doing that. I don't know if maybe that was part of some weird deal with Sony.
Yeah.
I don't know, but to me it feels like an odd choice, and I am sad too that he's kind of potentially gone from the MCU, because like you said, he's a great character. But yeah, No Way Home, it was such a ride and such a trip, and just I feel like all of the villains that came back, they did such a good job. In particular, Willem Dafoe. As much as I was looking forward to Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock, I think the Goblin really kind of stole the show in terms of villains there. Like he was terrifying. He was terrifying.
And it was cool to actually see him get another chance to play that role and take it in a different way almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And like that scene where him and Holland fight in the apartment building is intense. It's visceral.
It is. And it's
angry.
It is.
And like that's the one scene from that whole movie that really stands out to me.
Yes.
Is when
I agree.
Holland is wrapped around Goblin and he's punching him in the face, and Goblin is smiling and laughing.
Yeah.
Like that is terrifying.
And that's so much more terrifying without the mask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So much better without the mask, because
I was surprised though that they didn't, when he gets injected, that he didn't go Ultimate Goblin, the big green hulking thing. I thought that was going to happen.
I'm kind of glad it didn't. I don't know.
I felt like that was the place to use it, right? Like because he's sitting there playing with the machine, and they're all like, "Sure, yeah, you can do whatever he wants," and right. I was expecting that to go, right, because that would have made him even more of a threat, right? But I know they were trying to keep it more on the human level, right? But I wonder, will we ever get to see a Goblin either with like more of like comic-y cartoon mask or something, because we've yet to see Goblin actually look like his comic counterpart in any form.
Like the purple suit and
with the face that actually looks like a goblin, right? Because we had our Power Ranger version from Disney, right? But we've never seen anything else. But you were about the closest. About the mask.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah, he just did such a good job with that. And what I loved about that scene, that fight in the apartment, is where it starts with, the Peter Tingle, and it's like he just knows ahead of time, and it's just. And I remember watching that in the theater, and I remember like my heart sinking a little bit because I knew like, oh, shit's about to go down.
Yeah,
and like. He's such a terrifying, menacing character. He's pretty damn strong.
Yeah.
And, he's such a chaotic villain.
Yeah.
Right. He's so unpredictable. And that's what adds to that terror and that suspense. So, that was definitely one of the best scenes in the entire movie. Yeah. Just the setup for
the
it and the execution,
too, right?
The lead up to it. It was brilliant.
With May's death.
Yes. And then that was gut wrenching. That was a gut punch for sure. That was awful.
I think this film did have a lot more emotional weight in it.
Yes.
Than anything else that's really been in this phase. Because you actually had that moment. Like that's one thing that I feel that the MCU Spider-Man has gotten right with Parker, is that no matter how much good comes into his life, he just keeps getting shit on.
Yes, and that is classic Spider-Man.
And like even like the end of this, he's alive, but he's alone. He has no money. He has no tech. He has nothing.
No.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of like just the epitome of, as you say, the Parker luck, right?
Yeah, that is classic Spider-Man. I mean, all throughout, he has faced so many horrible decisions, and he always, in the end, chooses what most of us would feel is right, but it always has these horrible consequences for him. Another thing I really liked is the sort of redemption arc that we got with Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus. And the reason that I like it is because it makes sense, right? They removed the part of his arms that was overriding his brain. So it makes sense that he would then be like, oh my gosh, yes, of course, I'm going to change my way and all this, right? Like, and it's, I mean, ultimately all the villains were in a way by the end sort of helping him. I mean, except when they kind of all turn towards the end, but it really made the most sense for him because he was, at the core, a scientist. Yeah. He had a relationship with Peter Parker before becoming, the mad scientist that is Dr. Octopus. Yeah. So I really enjoyed how they did that because it wasn't just like, oh yes, I'm gonna change and be good now. It was like there was a legitimate reason, and
versus like in Spider-Man 2 where he fought it.
Yes, and exactly.
Was able to somewhat redemption.
Yeah. Yeah.
So question for you.
Yes.
So they explain that all the villains that were there were brought before the time of their death.
Yes.
Like right at the moment of their death.
Yes.
Does it go the same for the Spider-Man? That's what I've wondered.
That's what I'm hearing. There's a lot of debate about this.
Because that was when I saw it, I was like, hold on. Like, if the villains are here just at the time of their death, then legitimately it should be the same for the Spider-Man.
Yes.
And could that be why they were fighting so hard for redemption on their own mistakes?
Right. Well, here's the thing though. Maybe they mentioned this. I can't remember, but were the villains before that got revealed? I mean, were the villains aware that they were at the moment of their death when they got sucked back?
No,
because if that is the same for the Spider-Man, then the Spider-Man wouldn't know, and it wouldn't affect how they fought or if they how they would. So, You know, this is the theory that I did discuss with my friends. It did come up. And I don't know. I feel like as you said, it would make the most sense, right? Because I think that way too, you really sort of can justify seeing that these characters have aged.
Yeah.
Right. You're not dealing with, you know, they're and thank God they didn't bring them back and tried to like CGI them to make them look the same.
Well, because Garfield talks about being angry, though.
Yes.
Right. So there's time that's passed.
There's definitely time that has passed. So
and especially with Maguire talking about how they've made things work and all that.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely time has passed for them.
Yes.
Right.
So I would 100% go with that theory, because I think like you said, if it's that way for the villains, it makes sense that it would go for them as well. And I think I think that makes the most sense. Honestly.
I think for me at least, it makes it feel more legitimate versus them just being pulled to the universe with no other momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe because they'd been there for days, maybe they did realize, right? Because there's, you know, you see Garfield, he's, you know, the idea of like realizing that he needs family and all those kind of things, like he's missing out on those kind of things. So the other scene that I love in the movie though is the when they finally decide that they're going to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the lab at the school, and it's just like the Peter, right?
Yes.
I really like that scene because it played on some good comedic timing for having all of them there, right? So
yes,
that was another one of those.
The whole web shooter conversation.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I honestly, I think out of any Marvel movie I've seen, I think I smiled more during this movie than I have during any other movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I like does it come out of anywhere else? I love their curiosity.
Yeah.
Too. Like it's delivered so well.
It was just like this genuine curiosity. Like, well, I mean, does it?
Right.
It's like they all know what the anatomy of a regular spider does, right? So
no, that was really good. What else was I going to ask you about that one? Oh, so what do you think of the Venom tease?
Well,
did you ever see Venom 2? Let There Be Carnage?
I did not. Okay. No, but I understand that the end credit scene alluded to him being pulled into the into the spider world by the same means as the other villains. So I did not see that. See, I'm on the fence with this because one, the Sam Raimi Venom was not given his proper due. I think the biggest issue with that movie was just having too many villains. I would have loved to see just a pure Venom movie, and I think it could have been so much better.
Yeah.
So I feel like a little burned on Venom with that. The newer Venom movies with Tom Hardy, I've seen the first one. I didn't hate it. It wasn't like a great movie by any means.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was entertaining for the most part. I thought Tom Hardy did a good job in the role. It was walking the line between dark and goofy, and it didn't really know where it fell.
Yeah.
And so it kind of felt a little bit like they were trying to have a foot in both worlds, and it just didn't work so well.
You know, I always call him Doofus Rick because of Rick and Morty, because when they had that moment in the first Venom when he was like, well, these ones are more scary. I'm considered an idiot on my planet. I was like, you took something that was supposed to be scary and just turned him into a clown.
Yeah.
I never once felt that Venom was scary in that movie.
No.
Right? Like it should have. I see Venom in his solo outing being more of a horror movie.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And yeah, I know they were going on the lethal protector idea, the storyline, but it just feels like it could have been creepier.
Yes.
And we got all the symbiotes in like one movie.
Yeah.
So I am not a fan of those movies, and I want that be known.
Yes. As I said, I haven't seen the second one. I'm sure I will get around to it at some point, just as a point of curiosity. But anyways, because of that, that's kind of, I feel like I've been burned on Venom twice now.
Yeah.
That being said, the MCU does have a way of taking property that's been somewhat massacred by other places. Fantastic Four, excuse me. And then turning it into something enjoyable. So I am 100% willing to give them a chance to see where they're going to take this Venom. I hope that they will finally do the character justice as it deserves, because it is a great character. It is, he's a terrifying villain when portrayed correctly. So
and that's going to be the interestingness of how they're going to introduce that, because
exactly.
you can't have an end credit scene and show a piece of the symbiote coming back. I do feel like it was a bit of a cop out though. In Let There Be Carnage, he gets pulled over, he sees Spider-Man on the TV and gets all excited, and then somehow Eddie just stays at the bar for the entirety of this adventure and doesn't go trying to find him. Seemed a bit of like a only to leave behind just that.
It's almost like it's tough, right? Because it almost feels like, you know, you've got the two sides, the MCU and the Sony, just not knowing how to gel.
So unless that was like their deal, like, hey, we'll keep making these, well, we want to use Venom. Well, we have a very successful Venom franchise. We don't want you to intermeld these. Well, here, we'll give you a piece of the symbiote to create your own. So
that is another question, though, is who's going to be like, is there going to be an Eddie Brock in this world? Or like who's gonna like take up that symbiote? Are they gonna go with the whole black suit thing, Spider-Man first, or are they gonna like who knows? Right? It's gonna be interesting. I'm like I said, I'm willing to give it a chance, just because. I just hope they don't jump right to Flash Thompson. That would be. But bad. I can see them doing that, right? It's also the Flash Thompson, the Holland's Flash Thompson it would be so weird. To see that character. Well, I'm assuming we're going to have Venom. A time jump though, right? Right. Because of the, he's going to be going in for the next trilogy they're talking about as like his colleges. Yeah. Right. So I'm assuming we're going to have a time jump. So maybe, you know, if they go right to Agent Venom, maybe Flash will have gotten into the military and maybe kind of, you know, that's the next legitimate course. And being that he's such a huge Spider-Man fan, I can see that. That's true. Being a bit of their. But we are speculating well beyond phase 4 right now. We're going into phase 7. We're going to phase 7. So because there is no Spider-Man technically announced for. That's true. 5 or 6. There is not. So. But if sorry, no, go. No. I was just going to ask you about what did you think of the fact that he makes his own costume at the end? Oh, that was a nice kind of like, it felt like a nice kind of come like full circle, coming around back to the back to it. Yeah, I did enjoy that. I mean, it looked really nice too. I hope we see it. I hope we see it. I think so. Like from what I hear. You know, they're going to keep Spider-Man as I've seen all these things saying that Spider-Man and Daredevil are going to be like the street level heroes going forward. So like that'll be the curiosity because like, you know, when you think about it, he had 2 costumes, 3-4 costumes throughout his trilogy and his Avengers appearances. Yep. So all tech based. Yes. Except for his hoodie costume. Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if maybe he sticks with something a little bit more,
A little less techy,
grounded, you know. But that suit looked amazing. I know it was all CG, but like I would love to see that.
Yeah,
you know, going forward.
That was some good nostalgia vibes right there, for sure.
So finally coming to his own man almost, right? Which was really kind of cool. Any other thoughts on No Way Home?
Just that I really loved it.
So was there anything you didn't like?
There was nothing I didn't like about that movie. Honestly, nothing in that movie disappointed me. I had ridiculously high expectations going into that film. Like ridiculous. Like no one should have the X level of expectation going into a movie that I did, because you are inevitably going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
But I went in with ridiculously high, and it exceeded what I was hoping for. It just hit everything that I wanted it to hit. It had emotion, it had heart, it had humor, it had everything as a fan that I wanted to see in a multiple Spider-Man movie. And I'm really excited how it kind of left it and what's ahead for the character.
Now, would you be okay if they never got back to it though? Like, what if Sony's it up and doesn't go back?
You know what? Honestly, if that's the end, what a wonderful high note to end on.
Fair enough.
I would be internally a little devastated because, you know, he's my boy.
Yeah.
But, you know, if that was the end, then I would ultimately be okay with it.
Okay.
It's ending on a high note.
Fair enough.
So, one of the, of course, roles that we haven't really talked about in that movie is Doctor Strange, but it is kind of an important role because it leads us to our next film.
It does.
Doc Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, which is again actually kind of not really like it's in the sense like Shang-Chi, in that it is a very different feel from a lot of the Marvel movies that we've seen up until this point. It is not, I would call, a great standalone, because you really need to have experienced WandaVision, as well as the events of Avengers and the previous Doctor Strange movies. But one thing that anyone who has seen this movie will know is that this movie borrows a lot of horror elements, and obviously that has a lot to do with Sam Raimi taking the helm, a man who is no stranger to the horror genre,
especially the light horror.
Exactly right, and that's what we see. Like, we see this is still very much in a lot of ways a Marvel movie, but we see horror elements that we haven't really seen before, and and I, for one, am all for it. It was great. I mean, how many times in a Marvel movie have you had jump scares?
True.
Not very often.
Right.
Also, this movie has ultimately one of the most terrifying villains, again, that we've seen in a while. Not just for the fact that not that they are like, you know, super scary looking. They're actually quite fetching. However, the intensity and the power is very menacing. Yeah. And they do a very good job of making it truly threatening and menacing in this movie. And that is, of course, Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. And this also, you need WandaVision.
Yes.
To be able to actually fully grab what's happening.
Yes, because if you haven't watched WandaVision, the last time you saw Scarlet Witch was in Endgame. And this is not the same Scarlet Witch that came out of that battle with Thanos.
No.
By any means. WandaVision was interesting because it really was it the first Marvel TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And we are going to be discussing that in detail later, but needless to say, it ended up being a very crucial part of building up to this movie, and actually watching it made me very excited for this movie as well. This is one that has been on the I remember being on the books for so long and then just suffered a lot of delays.
Yeah. Well, it first came with these delays because it was going to be Marvel's first horror film.
Yes.
And then Scott Dickinson left because of creative differences. And then COVID and Raimi coming in and changing in schedule, and because it was one of the ones that was supposed to be first, wasn't it?
It was supposed to come, I think, before a lot of these.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Doc Strange?
Yeah.
It is. I actually think I enjoyed Doc Strange more than No Way Home.
Okay.
Only because it didn't build on comic-based nostalgia.
Right.
For me, it was horror-based nostalgia. Getting to see Rainey play in the sandbox and throw his own spin, because there were so many of those Evil Dead shots in the movie that just made me giddy to see. Because I love when a director is able to, play.
Yes.
Right? So some of those like tracking shots and the moving shots that are like clearly out of there, it made it a lot of fun. And I still will say that Doc Strange at the very beginning, when the eyeball monster that he fights,
yes,
when he finishes off that martini and jumps off the balcony and costume change, is probably, as of right now, my favorite costume reveal.
Yes,
of all the MCU.
Yep,
because like the only one that comes close to that is probably Iron Man 2 on the racetrack.
Yes.
Right? Like there hasn't really been a lot. I was
going to say probably Iron Man's the only contender for that, right?
Right, where it's just like, okay, time to go to work kind of feel, right?
Because like with Thor, it's always just like bolt of lightning, right? And then everyone else pretty much just shows up.
They show up. They got to get in their suit somehow, right? Yeah. And like I thought that was just such a slick way of.
It was very cool. Yeah.
And that beastie was just fun to see. Like
it was a super fun fight, because it was like, just to see this big ass monstery creature,
right? And the spells that he was using and the things that were happening,
and that was
so
really
effortlessly
cool.
too, right?
Yeah,
where he's just like,
you really saw the evolution of his character. Like going back, I recently watched the first Doctor Strange, and like his techniques and his weapons and his spells are so rudimentary when you compare it to what he's capable of now. So it was really interesting to see that evolution.
Right. It almost feels like, because with him being gone, he felt he had to catch up.
Yeah,
and that he's passively aggressively pissed at that Wong is a Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
So he almost is trying to show him up. Like the fact when he takes apart the bus.
Yes.
Right. And then like puts it back, like all that, like was just so cool to see.
It was fantastic. It was a great opening to the movie.
I think too, this film in general is probably one of the most character development we've seen actually in a character in the MCU during the course of a film.
Yes.
Because he goes still from being just more of the cocky Strange at the beginning.
Absolutely.
And then seeing where he goes wrong and having to change. And he does a character change without sacrificing the character.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like he's ever compromising.
No.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like he's learning through all of this. And I think that was really cool to see.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because normally when you're dealing with character development, like it's a hard thing because it's a show rather than tell, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to show. And one of the interesting things about having a multiverse with multiple Doctor Stranges is he can almost learn from their mistakes. So it's a much more visual way to see that, he is making different choices and, choosing his own path versus falling into the same pitfalls as these other Doctor Stranges. So, I think that was a very clever use of the multiverse in that respect as well. So, yeah.
No, I think everything about it was, I don't think it gets the credit it deserves for a film.
No, I think it was really well done.
Because there was a lot of things too that there was it felt like a Sam Raimi film, but it felt like an MCU film. But
Definitely.
it also felt different than anything we'd really seen in a long time. Like it never, none of the shots and some of the weirdness never felt like a standard MCU film.
And I think that's what happens when you get when you have a director like Sam Raimi, who very much has his own style that is very, is quite obvious to anyone who is familiar with his work.
Yeah.
But who also has a respect for the source material.
Yeah.
Right. And a respect for the universe that has been created. And is not going to come in and say, okay, well, now we're doing things my way. It's like, we're going to do things my way, but we're going to have respect for the universe that's been created.
Yeah. Right. It's like he was willing to play ball.
Yes.
But say, hey, I'll play ball if I can do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Like, I think that was cool. I love seeing the Dead Strange come back. I thought that was pretty.
That was amazing. Like, and then the way that he like used the dead souls is like, oh my gosh, that was so cool and so unique and just like not like anything we'd ever seen before. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was just like art.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh yeah.
Like
there's a lot to love within that. Like the rubs. What did you think of the cameos?
Well, let me ask you. I mean, scale of 1 to 10, how disappointed would you have been if Bruce Campbell had not shown up in that movie?
Yeah. I mean,
the thing is like,
but I still wonder, like, the Pizza Papa, that was a weird cameo.
Yeah.
It's very much on the same par as his Spider-Man cameos, right? Where it was like, it's a useless cameo in some realm.
Totally.
So like, I almost...
But it's almost a given. You're going to see Bruce Campbell and you're probably going to see Ted Raimi show up as well, right? Like it's almost a given.
And the car.
And the car,
so,
yes.
Like that made me so happy when I saw the car on end, and I was like, got it.
But I realize you were talking about other cameos.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're referring to the big ones.
I really wonder if they had given Bruce Campbell a different, like an actual MCU cameo. Like, if he had played, like, been cool if he had played a Doctor Strange.
But it would have taken away from it. It would have. Maybe he can be the next Stan Lee in terms of cameos. You never know.
Hey, yeah, right. Pizza Papa shows up everywhere.
Yeah. So one thing that I found really before I'm going to dive into these cameos because that was a very important part of this movie for me personally. But one thing that I wanted to acknowledge was I was very surprised at how much of this movie. And this will actually tie into the cameos, but how much of this movie actually derived from the What If series?
Yep.
Like, first of all, being an animated series and second, being a kind of like, Twilight Zone-ish type show, I did not expect it to actually have much impact on the MCU.
Yeah.
And yet we saw a lot of elements from that show, in this Doctor Strange movie, including Captain Carter, which I was delighted to see that. The undead Strange and the dark-hearted Strange and all of this stuff. Like, a lot of this came from that show, and I was pleasantly surprised at that because I genuinely watched that not thinking it was going to have any bearing on the MCU. And I think that was what a brilliant little nod to have so much of that based on that.
But I think they would have really failed people if they hadn't shown Captain Carter.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, because she loves the character so much to not have had even something.
Like, I think that's great. I mean, I'm like I said, and then the other cameos, like, amazing. Like, I don't think I have heard such loud cheering as when Reed Richards popped on screen. Not just Reed Richards, but John Krasinski as Reed Richards. Like, holy cow. And I had heard about like the fan casting before, obviously. And, at the time I didn't really think much of it. I thought, oh yeah, I can see that. But then when he actually popped on screen in the suit and everything, I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
But question, will you be as happy if they recast for Fantastic Four?
You know what? Honestly, normally I would be upset if they did recast the role, but we're dealing with the multiverse here. And I have to accept the fact that multiverse means variations.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and that's this is the one problem the MCU has set.
Yes.
So, Spider-Man universe,
yes.
Peter Parker is different.
Yes.
Possibly Reed Richards is different. Possibly Professor Xavier is different.
Yes.
But Doctor Strange is the same.
Yes.
So riddle me that, Batman.
And that's an interesting concept because, and I feel like that has more to do with being a practitioner of the mystic arts, right? Because when you're,
or is it just lazy?
No, it's not lazy. Okay.
Because I feel like that's where I feel. What if they should have had Bruce Campbell as a Doctor Strange? Put Bruce Campbell as the one that tried to kill American Chavez and come back as Dead Strange.
There you go.
Right?
That could work.
That's my one problem with this is that,
no, that's a fair.
You know, in some universes people are different and some are the same. So it's like it's that weird like gray area where I feel.
No, you know what? That is a completely fair observation. You're wrong, clearly, but it's a fair observation. No, I think you know what?
That's it for this episode, folks. No, wow, I want to hear.
Okay,
I want to hear your logistics behind this.
No. You know what?
Just say some multiverse.
Yeah, that's just it's like in Harry Potter, everything is just magic.
It's magic,
right? How do you explain that magic?
Yeah.
But no, I think they could have played with that idea. I think that would have been fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. And who knows? Maybe they did toy around with that idea. Maybe it was just a matter of, something had to be cut or whatever.
Yeah.
You never know. My feeling is I would explain that just in the fact that being a practitioner of the mystic arts, there is kind of a unifying energy between the multiverses for Doctor Strange's, just because he is one of the few people that can travel between universes, right? And so I don't know if that's true. I could just be pulling this out of my ass, but to me that would be
you've worked in Hollywood and you realize it's cheaper to cast one actor to do multiple roles,
right? Well, I mean, I feel like it would have been cheaper to cast the EA as a pirate instead of having a bunch of extras, but we don't get what we want. But yeah, I mean, if I had to explain or defend why they would make that choice, that would probably be what I would go with.
That's fair. Like I'm just, it's one of those things. Like, it's not a deal breaker for it, but it's like that thought that goes through my head of like where and why and how. Like, are they setting themselves up for failure from taking someone that people desperately wanted to see fan cast?
Yes.
And then they cast so-and-so that's maybe younger and they can get logistically more movies out of them.
Right.
And then people go, what the crap, and shit on them until the movie comes out, right?
Yeah. Like here's the thing about fan casting, okay? And I'm probably going to take some heat for this, but legitimately,
we'll make sure to post Jesse's email.
please send all hate mail to my registered Yahoo email address. Yes. But no, here's the thing about fan casting. I think there have been times where fans have legitimately been wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Case in point. And I was guilty of this as well. I did not want Ben Affleck to be Batman.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I thought that was one of the worst decisions that I had ever heard in the history of casting. And I think I even signed an online petition against it. And I am big enough to admit that I was dead wrong.
Yeah.
I was dead wrong. He did an absolutely fantastic job. And thank God someone with more sense than me was able to see the potential that he had, because he is honestly like maybe my favorite Batman.
Yeah.
You know? So I think this, having this multiverse and being able to throw John Krasinski into that role of Reed Richards, it is a great way of, catering to that fan casting desire, but then saying, okay, we've done that. Now we can move on.
Yeah.
And again, it's the multiverse. Oh, it's the multiverse.
Now what if, because originally John Watts was supposed to direct Fantastic Four.
Yes.
But he had to step down.
Right.
Saying he was tired and he had other things he needed to do. Right?
Okay.
What if that was all a ruse to only cast John Krasinski as Reed Richards, but also direct the movie?
Well, damn. I mean, it's possible. So, I mean, we're getting into some deep conspiracy shit. But
because we've got the release date. We don't have a cast. We don't have a director. We don't have a writer.
No, we have nothing.
Right. Really. We actually have a director for Avengers, which comes out the year after.
Yes,
the guy that directs Shang-Chi is directing Avengers: Kang Dynasty,
which I am very happy about, actually, because as I may have mentioned in the previous episode, I quite enjoyed that movie. So I would be delighted to see what he could do,
right, with a full team.
And
so there's those moments of like, wondering, like, that's where my head goes, is like,
also, does that mean we're getting a dragon in Avengers? Because I would be totally down for a dragon in Avengers. I mean, they could make the dragon an Avenger.
We'll see. Maybe
God, my hopes are so high now.
Some Fing Fam Foom.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be so choked if that turned out to be Fing Fam Foom. Oh my God. No.
Where was I going with this now? Where did we? I lost total track of thought.
No, the whole conspiracy, stepping down.
Yeah. So I'm just curious to see, right? Like, because when most directors have left a Marvel project, Marvel has not made a statement about said directors.
Right.
This was the one time where Marvel said, it's been great working with John Watts. We hope to bring him back at some time to work on something.
Right. Yes.
So like, everyone else that's left, it's been like, oh, it's been great working with you. Peace out. Right.
Yeah.
So like, it's kind of a weird, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I've been doing this stuff too long that I like,
or maybe because of that, you're more attuned to it.
It's just my wonder. It's just my wonder of where it's going to go. So Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier.
Oh, when that yellow chair rolled in behind them. Oh,
it is twice we've heard that theme.
Yes.
In the MCU.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We'll talk about the second time in episode 4 of this.
I mean, at this point, episode 6, maybe. But yeah, no, that was absolutely fantastic. So that was another. So I knew that I knew going in that we were going to get the Illuminati. I was not 100% sure who all was going to be on there. However, that was because of the trailer. We did hear his voice in the trailer. So I did have a reasonable, I believe, expectation that he was.
Later commercials showed the chair.
Later commercials did show the chair. I did not see those before the movie,
because that would have pissed me off. Some of those commercials just auto played when you were scrolling on social media, and it was like right there, like the yellow chair and that the green suit, and I was just like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, that would have made me upset. I luckily avoided that, so I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So to actually then see that chair roll in and not knowing that it was coming was pretty fantastic.
Nice. And there's another question.
Yes.
Does that mean that we won't see the hover chair when they bring out the mutants?
I don't know. See, again, like I don't like, it was the hover, like it was a really cool thing to see. It's not something that's crucial to me. It's not like a make or break.
I'd rather see the hover chair than what they did in the 2000 X-Men.
Just the regular wheelchair with the X on the wheels. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly more.
Because the hover chair was dope. Like it looked amazing.
I mean, and the thing is,
and if I had the ability to have a hover chair, if I was him, I'd be like, I'm having a fucking hover chair.
I mean, the thing is, he's telekinetic. I mean, he can make any chair into a hover chair.
Yeah, but would you really like to see him sitting around in a patio chair just floating around?
Maybe. Hawaiian shirt, little chest hair in the breeze,
little straw hat, and a coconut drink in his hand.
Coconut drink, yeah. I mean, as long as we get some yellow spandex, then I'm good, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah. What did you think about the fact that we got all of these amazing cameos and they all just basically got ripped to pieces?
I thought it was pretty awesome. I thought it was pretty brave. I agree. To show, because it was their way to show her power without killing anyone from the regular MCU.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. And I think that was pretty awesome setup because
I think it was brilliant.
Literally were allowed to do whatever they wanted because, like you said before, multiverse, it don't matter. Right. So they were able to just obliterate them like in harsh ways.
I mean,
like Spaghetti Reed was
Black Bolt.
That was amazing.
Oh my gosh. That was they're
going to have to put like that. That's a bar that hasn't been in the MCU because that was like actually blood. Mm-hmm. We haven't really ever seen that kind of intensity.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that was
like, we saw Thanos' head come off, but like it wasn't the same.
No.
Horror.
No,
of it because that was
definitely playing into the horror aspect of it for sure,
and that was shocking, and it
was very shocking.
That was really cool that she thought that quick, and because Reed gave that one breadcrumb.
Yep. So
I'm gonna take away his mouth, and then just pop, and then noodle Reed like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least Captain Carter stood a somewhat of a chance.
Yeah.
Right. And Rambo was there for a bit.
Yep. That was very, it was cool to see. My only complaint is I wish we'd have seen a little more of Reed's abilities and a little bit more. I wish that fight had been a little bit longer in some ways.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand the idea of making it just so fast and brutal because, like you said, just showing her power, right? Like this is not even a long dragged out fight. This is just,
I think maybe it also kind of showed that she felt like they were the biggest threat at the time.
Yes.
For what they could do.
Right.
Like for how quickly they maybe would have reacted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because take out the biggest threats and then move on to the ones that maybe need more physicality.
Right.
Right. But it also showed Reed's cockiness that he felt like he could just talk her down. Right. Where it was like, well, no, she's not going to kill it,
So what did you think about, speaking of, what did you think about bringing Black Bolt back? Like back when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was on, the Inhumans was a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because that was basically their answer to mutants because they couldn't do mutants.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had that very brief Inhumans series that was originally supposed to be a movie, but then got turned into a not great TV series. But do you think we're going to see more of the Inhumans, or do you think that was just a throwaway?
I think that was the nail in the coffin to tell us that they're dead.
They're dead. Okay.
I think that's because I think that's the only reason why they started going with the Eternals.
You know what? Right? I tend to agree with you because now we're getting into the idea was, like I said, that this was their answer to mutants. Well, now they're going to start bringing in mutants. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And the Eternals have never, Inhumans? Inhumans have never been that popular.
No.
Right. To the fact that when we talk about Ms. Marvel, they switched her origin.
Yes.
Right. I think that was the subtle producer kind of note of, we're done with this. Stop talking about it. It's not coming back.
Yep.
We gave you a comic accurate suit.
Yep.
We gave you him, and
you saw his abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's done.
Yeah.
Done and done. And I think that's kind of where they're going with that, because I think they have to be quick to respond to if something doesn't work.
Yes.
Look at the fact that Eternals isn't in 2. There's no Eternals 2 in the works, right? They're literally probably going to abandon it and try to tie it up somewhere else.
I feel like we're going to see cameos in other places.
Yeah.
And probably whatever storyline they're required to progress is just going to be parts of other movies at this point. Yeah, for sure.
Just to kind of wipe it under the carpet, right? So
totally.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us to our final film of Phase 4. Well, sorry, the final film that's been released.
Yeah.
So far of Phase 4.
Yeah.
And that was Thor, Love and Thunder, the most recent offering from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And Thor 4.
And Thor 4, the first original Avenger to get a 4th movie. So pretty big deal. And
what's even wild about that is that like his first 2 movies were some of the lowest in the for financial gain.
Yep.
Than all of them.
It's true.
And he's like the third one, Ragnarok, just exploded. So then they were able to continue it.
And quite fortunately, they were able to, I think, capture a lot of that spirit of Ragnarok in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of that style, a lot of the charm that really, I think, made a lot of people fall in love with Thor in the Ragnarok film you see here. And it was really a refreshing evolution of the character.
Yeah.
I think, to see him go from being just like this staunch stoic Asgardian to really being like this completely lovable, much more human character. That we see in Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I had so many good laughs.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've talked about this one fairly recently.
Yeah. So this is going to be more like, because like most people have heard what I thought about it, so I want to know more about what you thought about it.
Okay. Well, you know what? I am not opposed to being the center of attention here.
Fair enough.
You get 5 minutes.
Oh gosh.
It was honestly, it was great. When I watched the trailer, the first thing I thought was, I don't really know where the story's going with this, but this looks like a fun movie. This just looks like I'm going to go to the theater, and regardless, I'm going to have a good time.
Fair enough.
And actually, I was surprised because I enjoyed the story and I did have a really freaking good time.
Yeah.
One of the things that made this movie really good is Christian Bale's character, Gore, the God Butcher, because he didn't require a huge origin story to set up, for one thing, and his situation was, I think, very just made him somebody that immediately you can connect with and understand.
Fair.
You know what happened to him right off the bat. It was super easy to feel like, yeah, I get it. Like, I mean, maybe this is not the best way to go about it, but I understand.
Yeah.
You can immediately have that understanding. And when you understand a villain, you know, it makes it a lot more interesting, right? You were somewhat invested in him. Now, that being said, he did get to making himself pretty villainized right away. Like,
yeah.
He didn't waste a lot of time, which I appreciate.
Refreshing.
It is refreshing. It's not like he's building up to anything. It's not like we had to wait until the end of the movie for him to realize that he has to start killing all these gods, right? Like right off the bat, he's just like, boom, I'm in, picks up the sword. Let's do this. Yeah. Right. And he's fully into it. And he was legitimately creepy.
Yeah.
He was like, when he's in his like shadow realm talking to the kids in the cage. Whew, creepy.
I really think Christian Bale had a lot of fun with this role because he traditionally seems pretty static in a lot of the movies that he's in. And this one, he definitely looked like he was acting and having fun with acting.
Yes.
And I know that's what some of the other actors have said. Like Jake Gyllenhaal had said the idea that when he did Spider-Man No Far From Home,
yes,
he said it revitalized his enjoyment of acting.
You know what? I can see that, because that was such a great role. Because what I loved about that role especially was just like, you're going through you see him and you know that Mysterio's not a good dude.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't seem to drop. And you're like, what's going? And then finally, like you finally get, and it's such a good payoff.
Yeah.
And so I can see that being a really fun role to play.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I think that where Bale had the same idea where, I think that's one thing where like these aren't lengthy. Playing a villain in the MCU isn't necessarily a lengthy contract.
No,
it's very rare that it is. Right.
Absolutely. With few exceptions, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think that's one thing that's kind of cool is that you can kind of do a one and done and get to play something zany. And that I think that's what's appealing to play a bad guy, too.
Yes.
Right. And I think it's some of the most fun I've had watching Bale in a while.
I think he's definitely one of the more memorable villains because, as I said before, there are a lot of forgettable Marvel villains that don't really make a huge impact on you. But
I feel that with Dark World.
With what? Sorry?
With Thor: Dark World.
Yes.
Malachi was...
Yes.
Or Malekith or whatever.
Totally. I think especially with Ghost in Ant-Man and Wasp.
Yeah.
Another very forgettable villain.
Which is rumored to be in Thunderbolts.
Which is also rumored to be in Thunderbolts. Yes, correct. So maybe we will get to see a bit more. Yeah, it's it was that is a really good, because if if you're going to have a superhero movie, you need to have a good villain. Yeah. You cannot have a lame villain and have a great superhero movie. So that was really interesting. The whole Mighty Thor was great. I loved how they did it. I loved how they kept a lot of stuff authentic to the original storylines with that. And that is a newer storyline in the Marvel comics too, and I think it's great that they were able to adapt that and use it. And I mean, it is hands down the best appearance of Jane Foster in any Marvel movie to date, for sure. I think they handled that really, really well. It was a lot of goofy fun. Oh yeah. The movie starts with everything kind of being told by Korg. Yeah. Basically Korg retelling the story to a group of kids, and the whole movie kind of feels like you're retelling it through his perspective to a bunch of kids, right? It's a legend of the space Viking, right? And honestly, I loved that. Yeah. I thought it was great. I thought it was super fitting, and it made for a very enjoyable film where you could, I think, have that almost extreme goofiness, especially when it came to those coats. Oh yeah. and still be like a good story, right? Like an entertaining, like you felt like you were hearing tales of this swashbuckling space pirate, Viking, whatever, right? Totally. I
credit some of this to also being more of the type of film, like when different creators take over, different artists, different writers. Yes. And they're creating their own little arcs, like it is in the comics, where like, we've had the 12-issue arc from Taika Waititi. Yes. Someone else could take over and tell another arc. Totally. Right? And the style might change, right? And that's where we've had like the Kenneth Branagh arc, and we've had the who I can't remember who did the Dark World, but like, it's just those chapters, and it's all those different eras and what they liked through those eras and what Marvel wanted to try to tell. Yes. So I think it was a lot of fun. I think it's a good popcorn film. Absolutely. I think it'll be a good rewatch one because it's so goofy. I agree. Right? Because it's not super heavy. It's something you can put on a summer day and just sit back and just laugh at and kind of forget your shitty life for 2 hours. Right? Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't know. I mean, mine is pretty shitty. It might take a little more than just the movie, but I mean, that's besides the point.
So this here followed, we didn't mention about, but this here followed the same end credits idea.
Yes.
As the Eternals, of introducing a character.
Yes.
Doc Strange brought in Clea, which is Doc Strange's future wife.
Yes.
Right? And they have more mess to clean up.
Yes.
Which sounds like there's still multiverse problems. So that's definitely going to play into...
With his extra eye.
Yes, with the third eye. And then Thor brought in Hercules.
Yeah, which is an interesting introduction to the MCU because, I mean, Hercules is kind of a strange character to be bringing in at this point. Like, to me, it just, I don't know, like it's kind of weird. Like I'm always excited to see new Marvel characters into the MCU, but I don't know. I just feel I don't
care enough.
I don't know if I care enough. I don't know if I have that same level of the anticipation as introducing, like, say, Blade or something like that, right? But I mean, it's cool.
Like, I just wonder
what they're going to do with the character.
Will Hercules show up in the Avengers movies?
Yeah.
Or are we going to have to wait till phase 7 to see him and Thor face off?
Yeah. Like at this point, that's the biggest thing is I don't know how he's going to fit into the MCU at this point. Right. Like, it seems like a weird...
Because his whole introduction is basically to kill Thor.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a weird thing to introduce him in that way. Like, use the big reveal end credit scene to introduce him and then not use him anytime soon. Yeah. Right? But where does he fit in?
So I'm going to assume it's going to have to end up being part of the Avengers in some form. Like, he'll show up as a foil, an extra foil, or... It's going to be weird. It's going to be a wild adventure to see how all these puzzle pieces end up fitting, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because, like, when you think about it, like, this is the equivalent of phase 1 of the initial, you know, the whole Infinity Saga, right? And there's a lot more to go before we get to the Kang dynasty. And it's going to be interesting to see how Kang pops up. Now, I don't know about you, but it feels to me like we are going to see more of Kang in the films leading up than we did of Thanos leading up to.
I would hope so. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen him yet.
I am too. Well,
besides honestly. Loki, right?
Besides Loki, yeah. I mean, I after Loki, I kind of assumed that he was going to start popping up everywhere.
Yeah, I expected like end credits was going to be something about a Kang.
Yeah,
right. I do know he is in Ant-Man in Quantumania.
Yes,
but he is not the main villain.
No.
So, which will be really wild to see.
So yeah, we're still very early on, and we're still trying to figure out how all of this fits together. But yeah,
and I think we're gonna have to peace out for the moment.
Absolutely.
Talk about TV in another episode, and possibly talk about what we're all thinking with all these. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. We'll talk about the trailer in the next episode, maybe.
Sounds good
as well, or any of the more of the stuff, because we're coming up at an hour and a half here.
Okay,
so. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Come back for part 3 of Jesse and Mike talking about the MCU for Phase 4 thus far.
And snacks.
And remember, stay rad, dudes.